early on that what I might do at the beginning of the service when the candle was being lit was to put the lighter at the very back of the room and ask to have it passed forward from hand to hand. And I thought that would have been a very nice symbol of how the stories about God's way in the world have been passed to us from generation to generation. And what I would like to be very clear on is that we are not a people who have gathered to worship something that happened a long time ago. We are a people who gather together to be inspired by what happened a long time ago. And what happened all through the ages. In other words, the story has been passed to us from generation to generation. And in each generation, the story has been found adequate to provide support and encouragement as people go through challenging times. This morning, the principal images in front of us from the story are the relationship of darkness and light. And what I would like to be as clear about as possible is that when the Bible speaks about darkness, it has a whole spectrum of meaning. The darkness in the Bible can reflect the historical reality of our time as it reflects historical realities of other times. But it's not just that big picture of darkness that the Bible is looking at. It's also that small darkness that finds a crack in our lives, creeps in, takes root, and begins to hide from us the joy and the purpose of our lives as they were shaped by God's Spirit. We as a community have gone through a fair bit over the past months in terms of events happening to persons who we know, respect, and love. We can think of the Hornan family, which began some time ago, what they have been going through as a family. We may think of the Arsenals, what they have been going through since Lil's accident, what they have been going through as a family. This may be considered that darkness which tries to extinguish the light of God's love deep within us. I want to assure you that the darkness can blow against that light. It can cause it to flicker and dance, but it has no power to extinguish it. The dilemma is we at times get lost in the dark. We forget that the light we need to get along confidently is within us. It is that treasure buried in a field. It is something that we do well in giving our attention to dedicating ourselves to being in touch with the light of God's love that is within us. So when these scriptures say, "Arise, your light is come," it does not say, "Look out beyond yourself." It says, "Look within yourself." And this is what Jesus does. Jesus goes about meeting people in their situations of distress, their situations of concern, their situations of anxiety. And each time Jesus meets a person in such a state, he speaks or acts in a way to bring the light forward again. When Jesus touches a leper, and the leper is made clean, this is a physical manifestation of a spiritual reality. You see, the biggest problem in the leper's life was not leprosy. It was a problem, to be sure. But the biggest problem in the leper's life was social exclusion. That is to say, a leper was forced to live alone with other lepers. And social exclusion is a problem that the Bible addresses from beginning to end. The psalm we read this morning, the songs we sang together, all speak about a day in which God's anointed is going to change things. And that basic change is from the human race being self-centered to being other-centered. Now, self-centeredness is rooted in the lack of light. We feel an emptiness in us, and so we seek from external sources the satisfaction of that emptiness. We look in this direction and in that direction. We cherish some ideas, we reject other ideas. Some of us simply go into trying to find as much pleasure as we can, or just distracting ourselves from the darkness that is threatening us. But the solution, the hope that Jesus Christ reveals, is that the answer to the world's hardest questions are not to be discovered outside of ourselves. And what I'm suggesting there is that each of us has a task. And this is a primary task. And the task is simply to wake each day and say, what does it mean for me to be a human being? And I choose to use the phrase human being instead of Christian because I think the phrase human being is closer to what happens in the Gospels than the word Christian. Because Jesus came as a child, a baby, born to a mother. The story is clear. This is a human story. And Jesus is born in a time when there is a great deal of trouble. People are anxious. People are dismayed. People are beginning to believe that there is no future. And the message of the gospel is that there is a future. And that brings us to the story of the 3 wise men. We have suggested in our Advent liturgies that God is God in all of the directions. These 3 persons come from the Orient, from the East. They come from the land of Jainism, of Hinduism, of Buddhism. They come from a spiritual tradition rooted deep in mysticism and in the opening of the eye to be enlightened. These 3 persons making this journey were seekers after truth. And when they get to Jerusalem, the story tells us they stop at Herod's palace to see if he has any information to share with them. Now we can look at that and think that this is a story about Herod knowing what's going on and the wise men not knowing what's going on. But it could also be a story told to help us realize something. Because in our time, and in every time, we have imagined, we human beings, that the solution to our problems lies with the exercise of power. And the more power we can exercise, the more secure we will be. Now, the interesting thing from a historical point of view is that every time the exercise of power begins to increase, strange to say, security decreases. The story of the wise men stopping at Herod's palace may be told to let us know, don't look there for the solution to the human problem. Don't look to kings. Don't look to prime ministers. Don't look to presidents. Don't look to great holy leaders. Look somewhere else. And then the story moves to a small, insignificant situation of a poor mom giving birth to a child. A mom who has no place to give that birth. This is the only place available. She is not one of the privileged. She is not one of the affluent. She is not one of the high people. She is among the lowest. And that is told to us to encourage us never to be embarrassed about our personal insignificance. It's not told so that we can worship Mary. It's not told that we can worship the baby. It's told that we can realize that the answer to the big human question is not far away from us. It's within us. And to get in touch with it is our most primary purpose as human beings. The gospel says, Isaiah, "Arise, your light has come." Isaiah speaks these words in a time just like our own, a time of great political uncertainty and instability. And the people are wondering what's coming next. And the prophet says, get up, get ready, get going. Things are going to change, and you are going to be part of it. Now, in the other portion of Isaiah that we read, we get a description of the person that God uses. We have tended to take that and make it all about how Jesus is the special one. And in doing so, we sometimes ignore that Jesus came to let us know that we were the special ones. You go and feed the poor. You go and clothe the naked. You go and relieve the oppressed. And in this way, you are the anointed ones of God. The Isaiah text speaks of a servant mentality. Somebody who is not interested in my private concern, but somebody who is interested in the common good. Now, in our Western social economy, the common good has been sacrificed to private interest. And that has happened for one basic reason. Persons have forgotten what it means to be citizens. Persons have forgotten what it means to be responsible. Persons have been distracted, thinking that their job was to support the economy. And if they supported the economy, all would be well. Well, maybe not. I am hoping that in this year, we as a group of people will contribute our personal resources, our personal ability, our personal treasure, our personal time, and invest it not in our own future, but in the future of our neighborhood, the future of our country, the future of our planet. And if this word is being spread through all the earth just now, there ought to be people everywhere deciding that they'd like to do things differently. That brings us to New Year's resolutions, doesn't it? We have had this opportunity all along the while. But now, as the kettle gets near to boiling, maybe it's time for us to personally and collectively think about how we might redirect what we have available to serve the common good, to just overcome this whole sense of selfishness which has got the world in the grip of sorrow and shame. I am asking you to get in touch with the light of God that is in you. Talk with one another about it. Talk with one another about what matters. Talk with one another about how we can work together to make the kind of difference for which the world is hungry. Arise, your light is come. May it be so, and may God get the glory. Amen.